What's up, everybody? This is your boy Kmage 405, live from the 405, and then we're coming in with my main man Don, the man with the chinchilla. Of course, we were supposed to be doing this last week sometime, but of course, I turned into an old man, got sick, and went to bed early. Don come hit me up like in wee hours after partying with animals and people, and then he wants to come out and he wants to do the show afterwards. There was no way. I was in bed sleep. So anyway, man, as we're doing this live, I'm introducing the Don with his chinchilla. What's up with you, brother?
Hey, what's up, guys? Man, this takes dedication. This is usually gaming hour or hanging out with the old lady, so we're just chatting away, and I think we got some good topics this week for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. We
I
definitely
don't
have
know if
some
we're
good
live or
topics.
not, but I
No,
can't promise
no,
we're
we're
live.
live. We're live. I'm looking at it right now. We popped up. We are doing it live. We're doing it live. I think that's when everything's supposed to be working. When I pump that in, we're doing it live.
Oh
So
yeah, it's a thing now. I see
yeah,
it.
it's a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, man. Glad to have you back on, man. Episode 3. Man. So yeah, we do got a lot of topics to drop, and so we're gonna kick off with the first thing, and that was the news of the week, which was Game Rant's article that was going after Phil Spencer, basically saying that Zelda and games like single player games like Zelda and Horizon Zero Dawn doesn't have the same impact like they used to. I looked at it as a bunch of garbage, but a lot of people took it to heart. Even some Xbox guys, and they made videos going after Phil about this. What do you think about this? Do you think first that the article was accurate? And if you do, give me your concerns. And if you don't, let me know what you feel about that overall.
I feel bad for Phil, man. Every time he just kind of speaks from the heart. People just look at that opportunity to take something out of context, and people know they'll react to something he says, and I kind of run away with it. And I do kind of feel bad for the guy because he's just trying to speak to the gamer, and that should be respected. I think a little bit more, even from the media guys that depend on like drama and clicks, and basically that kind of national choir of gaming. But um, back to his like statement though, I guess, right? Like talking about the impact of that stuff that doesn't have the same impact. I would agree with him. As I was, we've talked a little bit about before, is I really don't think any genre dies, and I think we use the best analogy I can use is the fighting genre. We all know there was a pretty good low at the beginning of the 360 era,
Mhm.
uh, you would say, and PlayStation 3, really, there wasn't any fighters or any fighters are worth of note. And you would agree with me that it's come back in full force at this point, right?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. So yes, games like Zelda and games like Horizon Zero Dawn, those style games that are really not multiplayer focused. No, they don't have as much of an impact right now because they're not kind of the new hot thing, right?
Mhm.
But I'm a big believer certain genres just simply don't die. Even side scrollers, right? Now all the indie developers are doing side scrollers, right? And why is that hot right now? That natural wave that kind of happens within the trend of gamings, right?
Right.
And so, genres just simply don't die. Um, but player, it's easy to hop in and out. You have 5 minutes to before work or whatever, and you want to pop in a couple games, you can. It's more social. You can hang out with usually you're hanging out with your buddies or basically talking trash with them, that sort of thing. Those sort of things. So yeah, I mean, multiplayer is huge, and that's where you see things kind of growing,
Mhm.
and you're seeing kind of the single player scene kind of just leveling out. It's not really growing that much in that space, I would say.
Right. Yeah. No. Um, like I was saying, Livewire. Normally, I know me saying Livewire is pretty bizarre, making sense. But Livewire made a lot of sense about this. It was basically talking about how a lot of the single player games. I mean, you have to exclude games like The Witcher, Final Fantasy 15. But for the most part, when you look at games like Dishonored or Watch Dogs 2, they didn't meet expectations. And those games, a lot of single player games, as though they're very much important, multiplayer games are the talk of the town. That is the thing that generates the most money. I mean, at one point in time, everybody was going after Titanfall, if you remember, because it didn't have a single player campaign. Right. And then, like, we're looking at Overwatch, and Overwatch wins Game of the Year without any campaign. So, just in a matter of a year and a half, everything has changed, and multiplayer is, you know, is basically is at the forefront. I mean, you look at games like Destiny. I mean, every game that you look at now, every game that has a multiplayer component, it sells better. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I look at it as from the standpoint that I know Phil didn't go after single player games. I think it was a bunch of bull from what Game Rant said. Because I got it right here for what he said. He said, as an industry, I want to make sure both narrative-driven single-player games and single-base games have the opportunity to succeed. I think that it's critical for all of us. And you know, and that basically said it, but because, you know, they used it as clickbait, they tried to turn it into something that it wasn't actually true.
Yeah, well, you know, you take all the exclusives that are on the Xbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely went after the single player experience, right? You take Rise and two, even though it has a multiplayer element, the main meat and potatoes of that game was the campaign, right? You take Recore, right? Those are all, and you. I hate to say Sunset Overdrive because it did have a bigger multiplayer component, but the main thing was the main game.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you know, you take all those games, and you know, there's always these things like, hey, did they sell enough or whatever? You know, that's debatable because we don't know what the digital sales are versus hard copy sales. Matter of fact, we know 70% of profits in the gaming industry are from digital. That includes DLC, map packs, everything. So the majority of the market is digital. That's happened this by the end of last year. So and that's happening. And so that's kind of, I think, what speaks to Phil is like, hey, you say you sell 2 or 3 million copies of, say, one game, right?
Right.
But if it has a multiplayer element where, I would hate to say nickel and dime the gamer, but give the gamer the option to purchase things in the game that they think that it has some sort of value, that allows those sort of games to kind of, you know, live longer. You know, it lowers the risk of making those sort of games. And so, I mean, I get everywhere he's coming from on that, and I still think, you know, Phil is going to take risks on single player experiences because he wants to fulfill that portfolio. He
Right.
knows his portfolio is heavily multiplayer in regards to that. So, people always take what he says completely out of context. Matter of fact, I was listening to Rand had like a little rant going off where he sees pretty much all games being multiplayer only. And if Rand, if you hear this, and if I took that out of context, I do apologize.
No, they were
Um,
talking about that on BGST tonight as well. That
yeah,
Rand went on a little rant.
yeah. I mean, and that's fine. He doesn't have to apologize. I mean, when people have their opinions, it's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong with that. As a gamer, you're allowed to have those. In regards to that, and you know, the key word he said opinions, and he leaves it at that. And that's fine. And actually, I enjoy Rand's opinions, even though I maybe 20% of what he says, right?
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy his opinion because he comes from a space where he's, I don't know how the best way to kind of describe him. He at least comes from a place of logic, right? And he tries to explain his opinion very analytically.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to, and I can respect that, right? Because you can see where he's coming from, right, in his perspective, and that's essential versus just, uh, you know, all on a rant and not really giving a reason, right?
Yeah.
You go on a rant, give a reason. And he does a really good job of that. So, but yeah, I mean that's kind of an issue. Like people always take Phil's words out of context, right? And then he has to re-clarify because really some sort of news outlet can't do their job. At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No,
Go ahead.
No, it's just the thing with me is that I'm looking at one of the people in the chat and they were like, well, what's the big deal of it now? It's not a big deal. Single player games have been at the forefront from the very beginning of gaming. It's that the media, they're trying to use every tool that they can in their box to try to denounce anything positive about the Scorpio. And that really pisses me off it really pisses me off because the Scorpio is not about just Xbox fans. It's about all gamers. It's about the people that were at the beginning of this generation talking about power and resolution. It's about PC gamers that's talking about 4K gaming. It's about Xbox gamers that are looking for some vindication in order to say, look, damn, we have been in support of this console from the very beginning, and we have been getting shitted on from the very beginning, and now we can get our dessert. And that's the thing of it right now. Look, no, single player games will never die. They'll never fade away. The fact of it is that single player games are not the big staple sellers like they used to be because of multiplayer. And you got to give Microsoft credit for going in that direction. But what Phil was actually saying is that, look, we just have to be more smart on the single player games that we bring to the table, and I have no problem with that because there are a lot of games that have came out on the 360 and the PlayStation 3 and beyond that has been trash, and we've had to deal with it. Now we can hold accountable the developers to actually bring out some true content to where we can sink our teeth into, and if that means less single player games but better quality, I'm all for it.
There's maybe a different business model that needs to be reevaluated there, right?
Right, yeah.
Because you can't build to, and I'm not a fan of Uncharted, but obviously it's well praised, right? And the quality has built itself up over time, right? I don't think the first one really was that good, to be honest with you. I was surprised it even got greenlighted for a sequel, right? But now everyone looks at Naughty Dog as this amazing studio. It's definitely world renowned as a studio and things like that, and it's very much a fan favorite, right? And that happened because they gave a chance on a green light. They saw the potential in the franchise, right? And the studio ran with it, and that's good. I think a lot of the single player experiences we have all have crazy potential, right? You just have to be able to take that second risk. So you almost, I think, have to look at single player experiences and building a franchise as a two-part series, right?
Right.
You have your first game, and then you got to also have a plan, almost like for a second game right off the bat. I mean, I believe in single player games. My personal game that I'm working on right now is not multiplayer, right? Because the gameplay doesn't lend itself to multiplayer. Matter of fact, it can be very, very restricting on the type of game that I have and the narrative I want to be able to kind of take someone on an adventure, right?
Right.
So it's a single player game at the end of the day, and so I believe in single player, but I don't believe in single player in the sense of you can't just build like a Naughty Dog studio out of nowhere and expect Uncharted 4 type level of stuff. I think you have to start a little bit more humble beginnings, maybe at a AA level that's lower risk, right? Where the potential's there, right? And then have a game plan for the sequel almost in play, and go from there. And that first one probably not going to be a winner. Might be a little bit of a loss, right?
Right.
But you can see that real growth and recover from the actual sequel. It's a big gamble, right? But I would say that's less of a gamble than Scalebound.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's the one thing that I've always commended Sony for doing is it's just basically saying to the fans, look, I know you may not like this game right now, but I guarantee you when it gets to the second, third, maybe even fourth iteration, you're going to love it. And that's the same thing that Microsoft is going to have to start understanding, is that if they're going to bring out like a Quantum Break or a Sunset Overdrive, a Rise, and even though at the one point that people might look at those games and shun them, which, I'm just being hypothetical with that, but keep bringing them out, because eventually people will eventually go to they'll go to their cheap rack bin, and they'll see a Quantum Break for $8, and they'll go ahead and they'll buy it and they'll play it, and I'm like, wow, this game was a lot better than what everybody has told me that it wasn't. They told me that this game was trash, and I really enjoy this game. So what's available next? And then if they have a Quantum Break 2, then they'll be like, oh, I'm really excited for Quantum Break 2. But by the time everybody else has already played Quantum Break 3, that person is already a dedicated fan of Quantum Break. And for the people that's been dedicated to Quantum Break from the very beginning, they started a fan base. It all just takes that they have to just they got to take that chance and keep pushing their game lineup.
Expand past one game, right?
Yeah.
And I think what the approach is you can't start super heavy-handed. You have to start it maybe at that B level, right? But a good B level, right? A solid, and then let them prove the concept to the rest of the world, and then if everyone really likes what they're doing there, right, then they can get the green light for the bigger studio, the more staff, everything that requires to, pump it up to the gills as far as a AAA studio is concerned, right? But you have to have a game plan, a two-person game plan, and maybe not win the first time around. I just don't see you can win the first time around in today's environment, because everyone says, hey, we want something new, but when you give them something new, they're like, well, it doesn't have this from this game or this element from that game. That just doesn't work. So, there's things that I'm implementing in my game, like, okay, here's all new gameplay elements and stuff like that, but I'm like, I realize I have to make some things familiar enough to, say, other titles, or feel a little bit like other titles, to get them to that point where they can have that carrot dangle where you introduce a new element of gameplay to the individual person to make them want to utilize that in a game, right? So there are things you do kind of have to borrow from other games just to kind of get people in the door, but that's all hearsay. But single player games are not going away. They're just not going to be the new hotness right now. I mean, just at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think what Phil was trying to address was basically saying, look, we just got to be more aware of what kind of single player game experience that we want to bring to the Xbox fan, instead of just bringing out anything and everything. So, like I said, I support that, because I don't want a whole bunch of games to just come out and just to be trash, and just to say, well, we have variety. Well, because, that's what a lot of the PlayStation fan base, they like to bring up about certain games, but they don't play them themselves. They avoid them. They just like to talk about them because it just seems like it's good filler. And
it's funny, bullshit. Like literally about a month ago, right, where people were in the Xbox community were complaining that the Xbox wasn't saying anything, right? And then what happens when they say something? People just take it completely out of context, and they're trying to keep everything from E3 a surprise.
Right.
They're not trying to show their hand if they have a bunch of single player experiences or a bunch of multiplayer experience, or what the ratio is, or if there is a ratio. They're just trying to interact with the gaming community, and there's always some outlets that's gonna pull that information out of context and get people riled up just so they can get clicks. And it's like literally the National Enquirer of gaming. It's pretty ridiculous. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. All right, so that was a good little discussion. I think that people, if they really use their common sense, that they understand that Phil didn't really actually come out and say that he was down on single player games. If anybody just still want to harp on that, they're just not a fan at all, and they just want to just stick to the crumb side of bullshit, in my opinion. So we're just going to move on. basically, let's see. Okay. The final Xbox dev kit is going out in 3 days prior to the Tokyo Game Show. Looks like not only Xbox is going to be presenting games on the Tokyo Game Show, but at Gamescom this year as well. What do you think about that? Do you think that they're going to bring out some Japanese titles? They have to if they're going to go to the Tokyo Game Show. Are you excited about them showing games finally at Gamescom because they kind of skipped out on it last year?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show. Those are the two trade shows I haven't been to.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to that, I have been to E3 several times. So it's always from the outside looking in of what impact that actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you don't go to those places unless you have something that shows or appeals to the audience in those areas, right? So yeah, I think they have something in the works, in regards to Tokyo Game Show, in regards to that. That some dev kits are actually already out there in the public. What they're talking about is the final dev kit, like the thing is done. Basically, everything about it is just ready to go. And so if you think about that, that's literally, I forgot, I pulled up the Tokyo Game Show. That was really 4 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's plenty of time to do your final code, your final submission before the holiday season. Really around the world. So
What month is that actually? Is that October?
I forgot. I had it up, and I remember. Yeah, so it's the ninth month of the year.
Oh, so it's in October.
Just before October, I think.
Okay, so that might be an indication that the Scorpio is going to come out earlier than what people are suspecting. Like, because a lot of people think it is coming out in November. I've been one of the people that are saying that it might come out in August. There's been other reports that people are thinking that it's going to come out in October. Uh, Man, I mean, what do you think about that as
My
well?
guess has always been around October.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that has to do with the actual new not UI. I'm sorry, the new version of Windows essentially,
Mm-hmm.
Redstone, and that was supposed to that is actually been bumped up and ready, and I think that's I believe one of the key software components in regards to the Scorpio in order to be ready. So there's always hardware and there's always software side of things. So that's fundamentally key. But I think the hardware is ready to go. I mean, the chips are being printed and everything else, as far as all that stuff is concerned. So I think they're ready for launch, obviously before Black Friday and all that sort of stuff. But my guess is October, but that's not based on any reports. That's just my guess. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it would just make sense for it to come out earlier. I mean, from my standpoint, August is perfect. It puts Sony in a bad position, not only because you have this system come out, and of course it goes to price as well, but it also, it's just like what happened last year with the Xbox One S. You have a jump on the competition. You have games that will come out at the end of August. You have Shadows of War. You have Madden that comes out then in September. You have the new Forza, Destiny, and whatever NBA 2K18. If you really want to get a grasp on the competition, it would be better the earlier the better. Now, August might
but
not be the thing, but
earlier the
October
better.
would be great too.
Earlier the better, but it's also important not to ready, right?
Hmm.
I'm a big component of that. You only get one chance to make that first impression
Right.
when that hardware gets put in people's hands.
Hmm.
So that's my big key on that is make sure that software is dialed. If it's ahead of schedule, that's great, but just make sure it's polished, right? And so people just don't have problems with it when they pull it out of their box and literally just port all their cables over from their entertainment center and then boot it up. Just leave it a little bit more trouble free. for the consumer. If that means you have to wait another 2 weeks or a month or whatever before it goes on shelf, I mean, that's the right thing to do. It costs more money, but it is the right thing to do.
Right, right. No, I totally agree. But when it said that it was that it was going to have kits and everything for Tokyo Game Show, which is also another positive thing because of Phil Spencer going out there going out to Japan. They're going to be having some games, and they're just going to try to go hardcore with Western style games. That means that they're going to start having some more Japanese titles to get the Japanese base excited about. Which for anybody that's in the West that enjoys Japanese games, like I like quite a few. It would be great for them as well. So I mean, if you're talking about like I was playing. I was just playing it. I can't even think of the name of it now. Guilty Gear. If you could bring a Guilty Gear, even shock the world and bring out a Persona, that would be great. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know what they could do. But if and then just think about their first parties. Like they could bring out like a Tagi or Lost Odyssey. I think that the sky's the limit on bringing in Japanese games and then bringing out some other games. So I think that there's going to be a lot more game titles to be announced for this year than what people are expecting, in my opinion.
Well, I think we also, we're excited about the Scorpio because that's the new hardware platform that we're going to be playing on, right?
Right.
But I think it's really easy to forget about Play Anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think of Tokyo Game Show. That encompasses Japan,
mm-hmm.
China. China PC is really big in China, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I really think the real push over there is Play Anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what type of devices people are going to move to, especially with Japan. They're pretty fickle when it comes to their hardware and what tends to do really well there. I mean, even the PlayStation's not doing as well as it has in the past, right? In that country. So, Play Anywhere, I think, that's the real silver bullet. Why they're there. And yes, I'm sure there'll be appeal with Scorpio. I'm sure there'll be appeal with standard Xbox One S. But there's also this huge PC crowd. There's also people streaming everything from their PC to their tablet, vice versa, their Xbox to their PC, and that sort of innovation where things can be streamed back and forth and that sort of thing, and also the Play Anywhere where you buy a title and for them they make a title on Play Anywhere and it ports to each one of their family of devices.
Mm-hmm.
That makes the Xbox platform a lot more appealing to those developers because now that user base, right, is huge at the end of the day. And it's not a knock on Japanese titles, but not a lot of Japanese titles are really demanding.
Mm-hmm.
I would say on the hardware. Let's be kind of honest about it. And obviously, there's going to be some gyms, and there's still going to be some AAA's out there, right? And so that whole PC side is a big portion of it. I'm excited about Scorpio. I'm a console gamer, even though I develop on a PC and stuff like that. But I think that's where the big appeal is to Play Anywhere, and I think that's what's really being pushed over there. So.
Yeah, you could be right. I just think I don't think. Well, I'm going to ask you this: do you think that Microsoft is out there reaching out to the Japanese market to try to actually try to attract the fan base, or they're just out there just trying to save face and just bring some Japanese games to the Western market just to appease us?
You never know who's going to make the next big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a platform provider, you always want to make sure you always have an open arms perspective with all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're never left out in the cold, right? What is the big one on people keep bragging about on the PlayStation right now? Is it Nier?
It's Nier Automata and it's Persona right now for the.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Persona has always been kind of a weird niche game for
it's a niche. It's a niche title. I don't want to hear anybody making any excuses about
Nier's
Persona.
lesser known than Persona, right? So
yeah,
like that's a perfect example where obviously it's getting a lot of attention out of nowhere, right? People are buying it,
Hmm.
regardless of people think it's a success or not. Like people are actually buying the game,
Hmm.
right? And it's doing better than what people expected, right? Um, and I don't think really Sony would have predicted that. To be honest with you, the fan base keeps saying that. Well, we saw it coming, but the reality is, that's fickle too, because you never really know what is just white noise versus people actually going to go out and buy something, right? Um, but really, at the end of the day, I think that's a perfect example. You don't really know what the next biggest title is going to be, right?
Hmm.
You don't know what studio is going to form out there, so you always want to have some sort of presence where game development is happening.
Yeah. So I mean, it's, yeah. No, I kind of look at it from two different perspectives. I think Microsoft is trying to gain the respect of the Asian market, but I think in reality they know that they'll never ever get to the level of what Nintendo and what the PlayStation does. It's just there, and they're just trying to cater to the Western market that do have an appeal for what. Excuse me, for Western game. I mean, for Japanese titles. So for instead of bringing in something that's totally really off the charts, like Galgun, no need for Galgun. Just bring, yeah, just bring. I don't know, like what I'm saying, like they did this year. Well, last year, like they brought Attack on Titan. They brought like bring a King of the Fighters, like I said, a Guilty Gear. Bring other games like that. Some more JRPG titles, and I think that that'll just be good enough. I don't think that they need to just go all out and bring, like Dragon Quest Builders or anything like that. I think that would just be a waste of time because nobody on the Xbox side would buy that. So,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
let them decide, right? Let
yeah,
the studio decide if that's the case or not, right? I mean, Microsoft, the real money on a hardware platform, right,
mm-hmm.
is third party. The money you generate from those third party deals, right? People publishing games on your platform, you
Uh-oh,
always get a cut
you
of
was
it.
botting. Uh-oh, you're botting again.
I don't know. Am I working now?
Yeah, you're working now. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
But what it really comes right down to is Microsoft gets a cut every time there's a game released on their platform, and the better that game does, the better uh, more money that Microsoft sees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a hardware platform, you always want to be as open as possible and inviting as possible. In regards to that, I mean, I can care less about any of those Japanese styles. I really don't. I mean, I'm not influenced by Japanese games anymore as much as I was in the past when I was growing up.
What was your last favorite Japanese title?
Ooh, last favorite?
Yeah, well, last title that you was excited about, and yeah, the last purchased
That,
Japanese title.
that's a tough one. I guess that'd be back to Super NES era, right? I mean, that's when
Woo, that's going back, bro.
did a lot of ones, but like
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been Street Fighter 2, Super NES era.
Okay.
That's before they did like I was never a Mortal Kombat fan when it came out. So yeah, that would be the real big one. And I played some Zeldas in between. So Zeldas are also a really big one. Like best Metroid I ever played. That was an American team. People don't realize that was done by the same people that did Recore.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, people don't realize that majority of like Recore is all U.S. based, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Metroid Prime series, that was mostly U.S. based. It was a studio called Retro Studios in Texas.
Oh, wow. That
So
is amazing.
I think a lot of people would have different answers than I would,
Mm-hmm.
and not realize there weren't Japanese studios.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Now, I thought Mortal Kombat was Midway. That was American made.
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
And I never really was a huge fan of the original Mortal Kombat. I thought Street Fighter 2 had more depth to it at the time.
What? Mortal Kombat was
Yeah,
well. okay, like if you go back to the Street Fighter 2 compared to the original Mortal Kombat, yeah, I would give that to you. But now when we look back at
In Super NES era,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's really what the way I look at it.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, Mortal Kombat's definitely grown into something completely different now.
Yeah, yeah. Mortal Kombat is a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, they've
It,
matured for sure.
it,
but
yeah, yeah. Well,
it's
yeah. Just
everyone
go
had the
back and
same
think about
basic moves except for their special abilities.
it. Oh, that's true. You know what? That is really funny how you look at the progression of these fighters, especially Mortal Kombat compared to Street Fighter Five. Street Fighter Five looks absolutely amazing with their animations, but gameplay wise, I'm not a fan whatsoever of what they did with Street Fighter Five. But when you look at Mortal Kombat uh, X or XL, the level of detail and the skill is
Well,
it's not even
that
comparable. The only game that I could think of that's on the same level of Mortal Kombat this generation is Killer Instinct, and and then people might think of me as a fanboy, but I mean you got to really play Killer Instinct to understand how good that game is uh, compared to the best fighter, which is Mortal Kombat.
what's crazy about that whole statement, right?
Hmm.
Fast forward to today, and I would agree with probably both those statements. And I'm not as a fan of a fighter as you are, right?
Right.
But I do believe the roles are totally reversed,
Yeah.
and that won't be nearly as critical as the last Street Fighter, where it's a little bit more skeptical. I would go back just one more back, the one released on last gen.
Oh, okay.
Uh, that's a little bit better, well received, and
Mhm.
Mortal Kombat still, I think, is a better game, and that just kind of shows you how far U.S. development has come, and how the Japanese market is still having a hard time keeping up. Right? Um, that's just kind of the hard reality. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know if it's a tech thing or anything like that. But they are behind. I mean,
Yeah, they're not the same. They're nowhere near the same. Only just a few different, titles that you can actually uh, give Japanese developers a lot more credit compared to their Western counterparts. It's just not the same. Yeah, the mighty Western, the mighty Japanese market in development has fallen off compared to what the Western developers have done because they have been solid this whole entire time. Yeah. Are you still there, or did you bot on me
simple as
again?
that.
Oh, okay.
I'm still here, just listening,
Okay.
man. You're
Okay.
solid.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Cool.
Sometimes
Cool.
I go rambling, so sometimes I
Yes.
can't do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Before we get to the topic that that me and you really want to get into, I want to bring up another point. Another topic to hear your expertise in, and that is the Scorpio Design to render games at 2160p, 50% powerful HDD, 50% more memory bandwidth, 60% increase in DRAM size, 4.6 in the teraflop. So basically, from my understanding of that, which is I don't understand all of that shit, but but from I guess from my understanding is that I guess that what Xbox is trying to achieve is every game is going to be what 2160 is going to be what 14 basically it's going to be over 1080p, and they're going to have all their games at 60 frames per second. Am I right there or am I wrong? Let me know.
I mean, some of that stuff is options, and
Okay.
it's just really toting the power of what you can do with the system.
Mm-hmm.
Is the best way to kind of describe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dealer, I think he has one of the best phrases is if a developer applies himself, better looking games on the platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Microsoft's approach was not just applying yourself, but making it as easy as possible right out of the gate. Um, and that's one of the things that PlayStation 4, the original, the vanilla, did really well is how it managed memory with GDDR5 and the gigabytes of GDDR5. it was a lot easier, right? And then all of a sudden you hear people start talking about tile resources and stuff like that. Well, that takes more time, right? They have to implement DX12 to really utilize it, or if you do, it takes a lot of work to kind of get to that space. And so now your game's not 2 or 3 years of development time; it's 5, right? So the sheer amount of memory, the memory bandwidth, uh, what type of frame buffers that you can do. I mean, that's all just to help it look better. And the big one is the textures, right? Texture resolution is huge. I think with the tech demo that what was it? Windows Central put out,
Mm-hmm.
where they made some of that stuff that was really shown to developers, and then now made it kind of public available. Where they had a little slider, and I think the Ladybug is probably the best example because
Yeah, the Ladybug was
that shows
really amazing. Yeah.
it shows the difference in textures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what people don't realize with they're thinking just like color data stretched over a polygon, right? That's what most people think of when someone says textures, right? That also includes what they call normal maps, which is a three-dimensional texture map that basically turns every pixel into makes it almost kind of react like how a polygon gets shaded. Is the best way to kind of describe it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did a demonstration of normal mapping on my channel, and kind of how that works and all that sort of stuff. But you're not just bumping up one texture map; it's a variety of different texture maps that add to the overall image quality, and it really allows that in regards to that. So when you're bumping up not just color data, but you're bumping up the normal map, which is basically a bump map on steroids, right? And you're able to apply different types of fields, shading, all sorts of different things, right? That was just a rough example. That's just the beginning of what you can really do, depending on how your engine scales. So,
Wow. It sounds amazing. That's all I can say. I mean, it sounds really amazing. For everything that I hear about what the Scorpio is going to be capable of doing, I can relate to Newark and see where him and Next Gen and other people think that the system is going to be $500. But then again, I have to go back to thinking about how that $500 price, you know, made Xbox suffer, and because a lot of people is going to still think about the Connect, and when you bring up all these things about about the textures and how everything is going to be rich and defined, it sounds amazing, but you know what, I still feel that this system should be affordable enough, and that where Microsoft should take the loss, to take the hit, and to say, hey, look, this is your console, and we should just, uh, you know, and this is
well,
all for you guys.
keep in mind before they probably even touch silicone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before they even start producing a chip, right? A predicted price. They have a goal, right, in mind when they develop something,
Mm-hmm.
what price point they want to be. So you can look at the approach of what they did, which was a lower risk, but obviously incredible feats in itself, and what they developed in a piece of hardware, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, they had price in mind. Price in mind. So I have a feeling no matter what they end up selling at, it is going to be a razor margin. I don't think it's going to be sold at a loss, to be honest with you.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I think if they do sell it at a $400, like they hit that $400 target, let's say they hit it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the drop the mic moment. It's the moment of doubt that everyone has right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, if they're able to hit that mark, um, it's really going to be at a razor margin, because the cost of developing a machine kind of fluctuates a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with supply and demand, and that sort of thing. So you do have to have like a little bit of an overroom, just so your prices don't fluctuate on your shelves higher and stuff like that. So that margin kind of decreases or increases a little bit as throughout the year, and it constantly fluctuates. But that creates stability and confidence in buying a product. So I think they're going to hit the $400 mark. But I think a lot of gamers that are in the know what you're getting in the box see see the value even at $500, right? So I think that's where kind of like, a lot of our friends are coming from that think it's going to be $500 is going to be that. But I think they had the idea in mind of that $400 price tag. If they're able to, who knows if they're able to hit it or not, but they at least had that in mind when they were at least developing it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it would be quite amazing. Yeah, I don't even. I mean, we've talked about it a million times about the price point. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it's just the fact that just for everything that you hear extra about the Scorpio, it's just kind of like, wow, like this thing is bananas, and I could totally understand how a lot of people think that this thing is going to be a lot more expensive, especially when I said something on BGST a couple of weeks ago where I was saying, like, look, in the industry, not amongst us, but in the industry, 8K is the next thing that they want to move forward to, even though there's still 4K televisions and things like that. But I looked at it kind of like as a car dealership. Like, every time that they get to the end of the year, they always say, hey, well, we have these 2017s that we want to push over so we can move in the 2018 cars. So we're going to be selling these 2017s at a cheaper price so we can get them off the lot. And that's kind of like how I look at it with how 4K is right now. Because they want to get ready to start pushing out the 4K, and the 8K, even though 8K is really for people like us that's in the middle class or lower, that's going to be
You can't really commercially buy 8K televisions.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's way away, but I was saying in the sense of industry, the industry itself, they're prepared for it, huh?
A PC for a friend of mine. He wanted to do 8K. And since there was no commercially available monitor in 8K, we actually had to basically the two highest end Nvidia cards that are out there on the market today. That was plugged in with an i7, 64 gigabytes of RAM. Like, this thing was pumped up to the gills, right? And run two Nvidia cards at the highest ability that Nvidia has. That machine even struggled to get 8K on some games. Like, it would get 8K, but the frames wouldn't. On some games it'd be awful. On some games it wouldn't be that good. And it had some issues synchronizing all the screens to make that 8K display. But it's going to take a lot of power. So we're a long ways away from 8K. To be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I know for us, we're a good ways away from it. I'm just saying, for the sense of the industry, wanted to try to do something, because there was somebody that was, I was looking and there was PC guys that were bragging on NeoGaf, talking about, if the Xbox is going to do 4K, I could just go ahead and buy me an 8K monitor. And which is funny as shit, because the only 8K monitor that I actually seen, I think was a HP, or I think it was HP. But regardless, it was over $5,000. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I mean, there's no way in hell that I'm going to pay $5,000 for a computer monitor without anything extra to go with that. So that just shows that people are are not understanding what this system, what the Scorpio is providing, because there are so many PC gamers out there that aren't even achieving 4K. I mean, I have my rig, and my rig is not 4K. My rig is 1080. It hits 1080p. I can hit games over 60 frames per second. Some games I could hit, I think the max that I could hit was like 120. 120 frames per second, but I think it was a racing game, an older racing game, but I was just content with that. Now we're talking about something that's going to be a console that does, a lot better than what I can push on my PC, which I'm a console guy in the first place. I don't really give a damn about playing on my PC if I can get these games on my console playing at these levels. So, I think a lot of PC people, a lot of PlayStation people, people that are haters of the Xbox is really nervous about this thing. I think they really are.
Well, what's if they end up getting 4K unlock, right? It's like that's the cards they're playing right now, right? It's gonna be for a long time. We're not talking 3 or 4 years. We're talking a little bit longer, right? Because before displays that even become practical use for gaming, right? I mean, 4K has been around for a while as well, right? But the displays weren't really, they kind of sucked for gaming.
Yeah.
So they're really going to have it on lock for a while because, you know, screen resolution is a very marketable thing. Telling somebody that something has better lighting, not so marketable, right? So yeah, they're going to have it unlocked, and they also have plenty of leeway where games can really grow and scale how they want. So it's exciting, and honestly, I'm excited for what competition is going to bring. Right? I don't think the successor to the PlayStation 5, if they do release one, is going to happen next year or anything like that. But
yeah, it has no way, no chance.
It could be another 3 years roughly until we see the next iteration of PlayStation, right? To 2 years at a minimum, and I'm excited to see what they try to bring to the table, right? And this sort of competition is good. And if you're not interested in any of this, the latest greatest hardware, and if things work how they're supposed to, then you don't have to buy hardware. I mean, gamers just have a choice. Gamers like us, like me, Kmage, on BGSD or Next Podcast or GRG, we're always going to buy new hardware every 4 to 5 years. That's just how we are, right?
Right.
But obviously, last gen proved that people are willing to stay with their hardware for 7 years, 8 years, right? So you have to accommodate that as well. So.
Right. Well, and that's why I think that the Scorpio at an affordable price right now would benefit for the future of what Xbox can do, and the leeway that they could have on just taking their time to making out the Xbox 2 or whatever the hell the new iteration of the Xbox is going to be after the Scorpio, because it's going to be powerful enough to stand up even to the PlayStation 5, in my opinion. I mean, I don't see the PlayStation 5 coming at 10 teraflops or whatever.
People always wonder,
definitely not next year.
People always wonder why, we're jumping from 1.3 to 6 T-flops, right? Why do we have to make such a big jump to do that? Well, you have to have that much exponential power to make a difference, right? And people see differences in different ways because of how 3D games are made, right? So some people going to notice it in the texture maps, right? And when it's super sampled to a lower resolution television, you're going to be happy with that. Some people are, they pick up on 4K more than others, right? I personally think HDR is one of the biggest innovations in visual displays, right? That people can see the difference. So it really is, everyone's going to attach themselves to something different. So you have to make hardware powerful enough to be able to do all these different things. And to everyone else, it's sounding crazy, but that's the job at task. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make a system that people are going to really understand. And that's kind of where PS4 Pro is right now, right? They keep pushing the resolution thing, but at the end of the day, they really are average customer what the system can do, right? And so that's really kind of the problem we're at. But Xbox knows what they're doing, and they know that they have to cover all the bases.
Right. No, I totally agree. Now, before we move on to our last two topics, before we get to the nitty gritty, the thing that me and you want to talk about, let's go ahead and talk about Nintendo. Nintendo is addressed that they're not going to be at E3. Well, they're not going to have they're going to be at E3, but they're not going to be on the big stage. What is your thoughts on that? And then also that they have a new handheld available, and it's like $160, 140 to $160. What do you feel about that?
Nintendo's always had this history of releasing right before the generation of that hardware is going to end. they just do like a real cheap version of that. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the rationale behind it. Is it fan service? If it's fan service to people that like their hardware and say they were early adopters and their hardware, especially on portable stuff, is seeing the ghost, right? It's not doing so hot, right?
Yeah.
Is it just to keep those people happy in a solution without having to buy something more expensive and a little more refined product, or like that's the push in regards to it's not to add longevity to the piece of hardware, but it is really to take care of those early adopters and maybe their hardware is not working out as should, or the last people that want to pick something up before they basically move on. I don't know the business reasons why they do it, but they've always done that. They've done it with the NES. Right before the Super NES came out, they came with their top loader, right? I don't remember a revision on the Super NES or the GameCube, but they've done a lot with their portable devices, where they do a new iteration of that portable device, and it's a little bit cheaper, and that's what it really boils down to, and now people can continue to play their devices right before they move on to the next thing. So
Yeah, but I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to try to bring more of their library to the Switch in order to, instead of having another handheld added, to their catalog? I mean, I would just think that the Switch should be the main thing that they should be focusing on instead of an extra handheld, when so many people think the Switch is kind of like a handheld.
Is it an extra handheld or just a refresh of the existing one?
Well, I couldn't tell you. I haven't bought a Nintendo handheld in ages.
Same here. So I think it's a refresh.
Okay.
And if it is a refresh, that does follow the formula of doing something right before they close up shop on that particular hardware and move on to something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I really think, if you ask me if the Switch is going to succeed, I think the Switch is going to succeed more as a handheld than a home console today. It's a handheld that you can dock to your TV, and so just an extra little feature that a handheld has, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you ask me, a new revision of that has a better battery life down the road for a couple years would be where I would put the efforts into as a hardware refresh. But they always do that with their handhelds. They always do like a small refresh before they go on to their next chapter. I'm not saying it's rational or whatever, but they've always known to do that, and it seemed to never really upset anyone in the past. So it is what it is, right?
Right. Yeah, what Nintendo does is absolutely odd to me. They get away with a lot of things. I'm going to definitely get the Switch. My old lady, she looks at me crazy because I still don't have the Switch. But the thing of it is with me is that, like, it makes me nervous because if they're not going to be presenting any games at E3, that kind of gives an indication that they're not going to be having any games to come out for the rest of the year, except for the few titles that they talked about, which kind of leaves me nervous because maybe third party is kind of look at them suspect. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know, because as you see, the third party games keep getting more progressively bigger and better. The Switch is not going to be able to handle that, so you basically going to get a dumbed down version if you do, and that's not very wise, for Nintendo as well, to have such an underpowered system. I know I'm sounding quite like in next gen because I was totally the opposite, but I can understand his standpoint on this, is because there's some, the Switch is good for what it is, and they can get away with that, but damn, you need to keep coming out with your first party titles, and for other Japanese titles, to have everybody excited for what the Switch can bring to you in the future. You know what I'm saying? Or it would be just another Wii U moment.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. See, I'm not, not trying to pick on Switch or anything like that. I'm just looking at the history of Nintendo consoles in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Switch, the Wii U number as far as launch goes, but the Wii U didn't do very well overall, right? And
No.
so the real test of the Switch is where it's going to be 6 months from now. If it's still able to keep that pace, that's a good thing. Then you're not going to have a repeat of the Wii U, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it starts dipping, you know, then I mean, I guess Nintendo's just in trouble again for another 4 or 5 years.
Well, I think
Uh,
Nintendo will be fine for this year because they still have Splatoon, Mario, that Street Fighter 2 game, and then they have like I think another game to come out. Uh, but I think that their problems will go. I agree with you that I think their problems will happen later on, maybe next year, if they have the same type of lack of games.
well, I mean, if those games do bring in the hardware sales
Uh-huh.
for them, right, and they're able to keep that same pace throughout the whole year,
Mm-hmm.
and produce the amount of products that they claim that they're going to do this year, they'll be in a good spot. You'll start seeing third party take them a little bit more seriously, right? They'll have to make a special version of of something for the Switch, right? Um, but you know, thinking about it is they already do that for their portables anyway, so they're just gonna be treated as a higher end portable. That's where I see it kind of going if they go that direction. But we'll see what ends up happening with them. I'm watching to see what happens in the next 6 months. That's the real story. That's where they're at in 6 months after launch. So
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Anyway, let's get on to the last topic. Um, the topic, Agent Locke. I've talked about this all weekend. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna let you have the floor. Of course, yeah, you know, they're 343 was saying that they're doubling down on Master Chief and Halo 6. You know, we're not really sure if Halo 6 is going to come out next year. Hopefully, for me, not until later on. But you know, and then also that there was other people that were asking questions, and from some of these people that they were kind of told that they were going to try to phase out Locke and Team Osiris. What do you think about that, Don?
did they say phase out or do a more Master Chief focus?
Well, Halo 6 is going to be doubled down. It's going to be more focused on Master Chief, but of course, there was so much talk, and there were people that were wanting Locke in Team Osiris to be pushed aside and pushed away. There were people that were actually saying that they were hearing that this is all speculation that they were going to try to phase out Locke and Team Osiris. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on all
I
of
think
this.
the gamer tends to think in black and white, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're making more of a Master Chief focused story, so therefore they must be totally phasing out Osiris team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it really have to be that based on that statement? Not necessarily. They could have a totally other game plan. You know, and you and me have a very similar. I think come from different backgrounds, right?
Right.
We don't see realistically a difference between him or any other main character you played in the Halo universe, right?
Right.
What was the guy off Noble Team on Reach, right? He didn't say he barely said any words, right? He, you know, is from ODST.
Yeah.
The guy that you played was pretty much a copy paste version of like Master Chief, but in ODST, right? And you have
Mm-hmm.
Locke. It's really, you know, less is more of sort of a personality. For whatever reason, everyone decided to turn on Locke,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I understand wanting to play a character that you've grown to love over the years, but you know, I don't think the hate's definitely justified on Locke. And you know, realistically, the only thing different from other character is, you know, and you probably have a different perspective on this, but outside of any other character in the Halo universe that you play as the main protagonist, he's the one that showed his face
Mm-hmm.
very early on. You never see Chief's face. You never see Noble's face. You never see the ODST guy's face, right? And there's power in that because what that does is that the gamer starts projecting themselves as that character.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense?
Yeah, no, that makes
versus having that disconnect. So let's say like somebody that can't relate to Locke because of his heritage, right? That presents an issue, right? When you can't, when you see that person, even though he's a badass character, I like playing that as that character. I enjoy him just as much as I do Chief. I think for a lot of people that's a barrier for them to kind of, and that's where they have a problem. But I don't think they should phase out Osiris' team at all. I honestly think they need to play around with the proportions a little bit, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe do 20% Osiris, right? Flip the roles around like what they did with the last Halo, is do the majority as Chief, right, and do less is more with the Osiris team. But don't waste the time and effort that you put in that team, because there are people, when you introduce people to new characters in a franchise, there are people that are not, the vocal people that do actually enjoy that character in regards to that. And so, you kind of have to soft launch those sort of changes for people. And to be honest with you, the voice actor of Chief is eventually going to have to go do something else, right? Mm-hmm. He's not going to do Chief the rest of his life. And people have to kind of be realistic about that too as well. In regards to that, I don't know if people really realize that. So
yeah, I'm reading a couple of people in the chat, and saying Master Chief is like Kratos is to God of War. But if you also go back to that, DJ, you can look at what Kratos is. Kratos is different now. Kratos doesn't look like the same Kratos from the other previous God of Wars. They have him looking totally different. And then Jay Centuries is saying, Halo 6 is pretty much is going to, be the end of Master Chief, because they're going to be doing something with the he's just going off now. They're just talking amongst each other. Anyway,
there's some people that know the lore way better.
Yeah. They know the lore way better than I do too. I haven't read all the comic books or the novels or the comic books as much as others, but I just can't say this, and I've said this a million times already, but I will continue to say this. If in order to have the Halo story reach epic proportions, you have to have Halo bigger than every other individual in the story. And if you have Master Chief being Halo, once Master Chief is gone, then Halo is gone, because there will be so many people that will be distraught, be upset, be done with it, that whenever you would try to bring back Halo again, saying like, Halo the next generation, people are not going to take it seriously like they did with Master Chief.
Well, the funny thing is, Master Chief has been gone from the industry for a while.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
You remember Reach? You remember ODST?
Yeah.
There's definitely games that, Chief just really wasn't there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was outcries on those games, but not nearly to the same degree of the last Halo. I don't think the last Halo was perfect or anything like that. It definitely had its fair share of issues, just like any game, in regards to that. But I just can't follow the rational reasoning people for hating Locke, right?
I feel the same way.
Yeah, like he doesn't have any personality. Well, none of the main protagonists in any of the games have that much personality. Matter of fact, I would argue, and I dare someone to count the words, right? I would argue that Locke has probably said more words in the last Halo than Master Chief has said in the first three.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Everybody around Master Chief in the first three games. See, I think a lot of people keep on thinking of, because he was kind of like the John Wayne, the big badass of of the we did the big space cowboy basically, and he didn't say too much. He didn't have to. He kicked ass and he took names. But when I actually I loved Halo for what it was. I played the single player. I thought it was cool. I enjoyed it, but I was more into the multiplayer of Halo. But when Halo 4 came out, I got into the story for the very first time and was like, "Whoa, this is something different." So now, since they're going into the story-driven aspects of Halo with the story, now I'm like some people, they love the Arbiter. There's some people that likes one of the individuals from the blue team, But as for me, they introduced Locke, and I love Locke, and I'm like, that's another Spartan that I can sink my teeth into, that I can play with and that I can relate to as well, and then get on this journey going against whatever that's out there with in Halo. And then also, with all the enemies, like we talked about Atriox, we talked about the Covenant, we talked about the Prometheans, but let's not forget this: there could be a new version of the Flood coming out as well. And the Flood was already a problem for Master Chief in Halo 2 and 3. So I really do think that people really need to pump the brakes and stop thinking that Master Chief should just take over everything and show that he needs help, to humanize him. I really do.
Well, I don't think it takes anything away from the character's accomplishments in the series, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the threat keeps growing. Is what you're trying to show in the story, and I think if you compare Locke and Chief, the one fundamental difference, right? Chief is known as the lucky one, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't really show that fear, but I think Locke is that character that has to get by on his cunning, right?
Yes.
He has to think his component because he knows he's not as strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
He knows he's not, people get way into the lore of Master Chief and what generation of Spartan he was and all that sort of stuff, and I get that. You build up this lore, but I think a lot of times too, when you build those sort of lore, people build it up in their head a certain way versus what it actually is. Because when I hear people argue about that sort of stuff, it's just let the storytellers that made the series, which a big portion of them left Bungie to start 343, right? That didn't want to work on Destiny. Let them, take you on the journey that they want to take you on, and it's okay to express yourself, but just articulate it in a way that everyone can relate to what you're talking about. I guess is where I'm coming from, because I can't see where the hate for Locke is coming from. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I just totally agree. I think it's crazy. Yeah, just another character. If you don't like him, that's fine. But to scratch him out, phase him out, I don't want to see Locke anymore, or Team Osiris. You know what? I have a big problem with that, because you need the more cool characters that approaches the Halo universe, the better that the story can be, because it shows that there are some serious problems in the universe and that they're going to need all the help that they can get.
So, would you be okay if they played with the percentages, right? So, not get rid of Locke or Team Osiris, right?
Mm-hmm.
But put them in 20 or 10%, kind of soft reboot them into the franchise, if you know what I'm talking about. And then give those diehards, just hang that carrot out just a little bit, right? Give them a little bit less is more. That makes them a little more curious about these new characters in the universe. And then expand upon them on, a couple franchises down or something like that. I mean, I think that would be the approach that would be more widely accepted. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just find it to be just, I just say personally, do more spinoffs. Don't bring out Halo 6 so early, because Crappin was saying tonight that they were thinking that Halo 6 was going to be presented maybe at the Z3 to spark up that Halo 6 is going to come out next year. I hope not. I really hope that they bring out some spinoffs. Like I said, that they have so many different characters that they could work with, and they could take the story in so many different directions. I think that was the one part of Halo Wars 2 that I found so positive, because it's its own story that's connecting to what's going on in the Halo universe. And if you could do an Arbiter have his own story, Locke and his team have their own story, and then bring up Halo 6 and keep it about Master Chief, and maybe have maybe 10% of whoever else that's going to come and assist. Yeah, that would be really dope. You know what I'm saying? I'll feel comfortable about that. Other than that, I can't. You know what I'm saying? I can't rock with them trying to phase out somebody that I really have had a lot of interest in. And Halo,
Yeah,
I really can't. I really can't.
absolutely. Well, they always have that problem every time they introduce a new character, right?
Yeah.
People want to know more about that character, and but there's also the segment of the market that doesn't want anything to do with that new character. Situation is probably the most extreme I've ever seen. So.
Yeah. There's somebody in the chat that was saying that he was being basically real, that he thinks a lot of the hate for Locke was race related, and I totally agree. I read the comments when they first presented Locke, when they showed those commercials where Locke was standing over Master Chief, and it looked like he was going to shoot him, and then vice versa, whatever. There were a lot of racial overtones, and that is not towards the whole overall Halo fan. We all know that. We all know that there's just people that just genuinely don't like Locke because he didn't have enough of a personality, or whatever the fact that they said that they didn't like Locke. But that there was a dark element of people that couldn't stand the fact that there was a Spartan that was black, that had commands like he did. And especially if you played Halo 5, you've seen when him and Master Chief went hand to hand, that he wasn't no punk about it. You see what I'm saying? So it was,
exactly.
Yeah, and so that was the thing that a lot of people was giving excuses about the fight between them. Well, his Master Chief's helmet was already damaged. That's why he cracked it. I don't want to hear that shit. I just seen what I seen in the fight, and it went down, and it came out to be a person that was cunning, other person that was more powerful. You see what I'm saying? And that,
yeah,
and it was epic, and it set up something for for the Halo series to even go further. And that, to me, is the main objective about what what 343 needs to do with Halo, is make this story bigger than any character, because you can have this as marketable as Star Wars or Star Trek if you do it right. And that's the thing that I want them to do, is to make sure that they have this story right. Because in Star Trek, I'm a huge Trek fan. They have Voyager, which I wasn't a big fan of Voyager until I started watching it, and then I became a real big fan of Voyager. You had Deep Space Nine. I love Deep Space Nine. Especially when Lieutenant Worf came on with Cisco and all the crew. I was like, oh, this shit is tight. Then they had like some of the best villains next to the Borg to me in Deep Space Nine. I mean, that's the type of thing that I look at, that the Halo series can bring to gamers, is that they can have a story that can keep going on and stretch on for generations if they do it right.
Yeah, and like looking at the chat, and I know Jason is like, I know Jay's super into Halo, so his lore knowledge is way above and beyond like what I know about the Halo series. I know a bunch of guys that worked on the Halo series that are friends of mine and stuff like that, and so I know all the history of like the game development and stuff like that. Like he was talking about ODST. Yes, I do know ODST was supposed to be a spin-off DLC that grew into something much bigger. And I know the history behind that conversation and everything else that I'm not allowed to, like, I really wouldn't chat about it lively on the public. But at the end of the day, he points out this thing, is that Spartan 2, most of them, or is it, no, he had something along the lines of not laying hands on a Spartan 4 cannot kick an ass of a Spartan 2. And this lays to, I think, when people explain the lore of Halo, and I've seen this quite a bit, right? They keep projecting how powerful one generation of Spartan is versus another, and just kind of just blows it out of proportion because it's written in a book and stuff like that, and they just take it to the extreme. And I'm not saying Jay takes it to the extreme, but he does present this example of what I've seen before and seen people say before, right? And I've also seen people that know more about that lore around the same lines that would argue the other side of it, right? So it's one of those things that these are the original 343. A lot of 343 is the original creators of Halo. Let them make their game. And if you're going to hate on something, boring, right?
Right.
Or something, you just got to give better reasons than that, because everyone else that liked the character, you can't have a constructive conversation of solutions and things like that, and that's what I want. I want to see good solutions.
Yeah.
In regards to that, if you dislike the character, like you look at my approach. My approach was not get rid of the characters because I liked them, right? I don't want them to go away, but I also understand there's a majority of the segment of the market wants to still play Chief. They're not ready to let them go yet, right? So mix up the formula a little bit more, right? Make it a little bit more about Chief, but still include those other characters, and don't let all that hard work go to waste.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. When Jay is talking about a Spartan 2 or towards a Spartan 4, that's irrelevant to me too, because in real life, and I know this isn't real life, but I mean, if you really look at there's people that have been, full-fledged military guys that trained, and they came out in the streets, and then they just got caught up fighting the wrong person. And that person, that person that had no combat training beat that person. So I don't want to hear that about the Spartan rank. You know what I'm saying? We know John is powerful. We know John is the shit. But there's some substance with Locke, and then to have that fight sequence and how they all how that all counteracted, that shows that this man is somewhat of an equal, and he's not somebody that will bow down to Chief anytime soon. You know what I'm saying? He's still trying to find the truth, just like what John is trying to do, of trying to save and help Cortana. So it has a lot more appeal to it when you have other players involved into it, instead of just talking about the same team. And so that's why I would think that if you have a spinoff, maybe do an ODS 2, maybe do a side story talking about Bucky's private story, or if you try to have something about like Halo Reach 2, where they're trying to go after the fallen members of Halo Reach, and they have to go find something, and then they run into something else that's important. I mean, there's so many different angles that they could use with Team Osiris that they could actually that could be beneficial to the Halo saga, instead of them trying to phase them out. And I just hope 343 will not do that, just because of the bitchy fans, because of course they still want split screen, and I don't think anybody that I know is still going to be playing games in the split screen form.
As long as they do it in a way that doesn't compromise the actual engine, which I think that's where they've kind of gotten to a place where they can still make the game run exactly the same as when you're playing single player, but when you're doing split screen, they found a way to really scale the engine for split screen. I think that's where that's coming from, and as long as you have to understand you have to sacrifice something to get that split screen, that's fine. Let that small population have it. Options are never a bad thing, as long as it doesn't compromise the main integrity of the game, if you know what I mean. So
yeah. So I know Centuries wanted to come in here, and he wanted to give his take to it, but it will have to be for another time, because we're going to get ready to shut this down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I got to get ready to go to work in the morning. You know what I'm saying? My fever, it hits me more at night, and more than it does in the day. And so now you can hear my voice starting to be more, like, yeah, and I'm starting to cough, and so now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to get ready to try to lay it down here in a little bit. So yeah, no, Jay, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about it again some other time, because I think that this is the most compelling thing about Halo is that compared to I would say any other PlayStation game out there is that Halo still has so much relevance that so many people still talk about it, and that this impacts a lot of gamers. This is amazing.
They're super passionate, and it's a series that transcends really gaming too,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of Jason Entry's knowledge is in the lore world. That lore comes from comic books and mostly books, right? It comes from all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't written this. Sorry, I have not read a single one of their lore books. I have one. I have the Fall Reach in my house, but I've never really bothered to read it, to be honest with you. So
Yeah. So anyway, man, but this was awesome. Jay, I was gonna say Jay. God damn it, because Jay keeps coming here. Please. Don, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. Give everybody your information before we get out of here.
yeah,
Man.
yeah. Well, Kmage's got the link, the Twitter link down below.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best place to follow me. I don't tweet a whole lot. I'm not a big fan of. Sometimes when you tweet, it becomes like the cesspool of controversy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big part of that. I'd rather have an actual conversation with somebody versus 20 characters. But I will interact with you if you follow me on there. I try to keep it positive. I also have a YouTube channel called Happy Little Polygons, which has to do a lot more with my work on my own personal game behind the scenes, or more explaining things, kind of how the sausage is made, right? When it comes to gaming, that sort of thing. Last thing I posted, I don't post very often, was basically addressing the issues of scaling between multiple consoles and how it really isn't a big deal, and how our older consoles are not going away anytime soon, to be honest with you, and how the older consoles are not holding back the newer consoles. They really are going to complement one another. So if you're curious about how all that works, look up Happy Little Polygons. It's my latest video, and check it out.
No doubt. And of course, it is Kmega 405. Remember to check out the GRG podcast every Friday night, 8:30 Central. I will say Central, 8:30 Eastern. We'll be going on Delilah HD time. No, I'm just playing. It's usually we normally run a little bit late because we always have to run into somebody. They have something popping up, but for the most part, it's at 8:30 Eastern, and we'll definitely be there every Friday night. And we also will have it on the GRG podcast channel. So go ahead and check that out. But the dev and the gamer will be on my channel. And man, we thank you guys for rocking out with us because at a short notice, because normally we were supposed to be doing this beforehand, but because I'm Grandpa Mega, and I've been going to bed early because I've been sick. You know what I'm saying? I need my graham crackers and milk. I have to, you know what I'm saying? We had to do it tonight, but it's always a pleasure working with my brother Don. And you know what? Thank you guys so much for rocking out with us, man. It's always cool to see people that appreciate what we do, because we appreciate you guys listening to us. So everybody have a great night. Thank you. We're out. Peace.
All right, later, guys.